Just a quick overview of the agenda. I will be doing a quick overview of TISCI, followed by a modern finance overview by TISCI's finance director, Richard Baxter, followed then by the demo on custom financial reporting by Rachel Harris, one of TISCI's Business Central consultants. And then we've got questions in the end. However, if you are scared that you'll forget your question, please pop it in the chat box and we'll be able to answer it then in the end as well. So if we go over to TISCI, TISCI was founded in 2011. We are an award-winning business for Microsoft Dynamics 365 ERP and CRM, to name two. Since we were founded in 2011, TISCI has grown to over 100 employees, with more than 80 of them in delivery roles, as we pride ourselves in end-to-end solution delivery. As you can see there on your right, some of the things that TISCI offers over the software that we implement. With this, I am honestly proud to say that TISCI's ERP practice is led by accountants or people who have extensive accountancy background. If we go over to the next slide, I'm aware it's a very busy slide. There's the Microsoft ecosystem overview. On your left, you've got Microsoft 365. In your middle, you've got Microsoft Dynamics 365 with Business Central situated there between all of those modules. And then on your right-hand side, you have the advanced analytics. What Microsoft does very well is the integration between all three of these Microsoft systems to allow for increased efficiency, offer an attractive return on investment on your company, on the software that we implement, and improve and enhance your processes as all of your data is available live. There's a full integration with the Microsoft Office on your left to allow for auto-publishing of data from Excel into your finance system, your Business Central in the middle, and allow for full interaction with your Outlook, including the ability to create and post sales documents without even leaving your email. What it also offers is the integration with your advanced analytics, so your Power BIs and your Cortanas, to allow the view of live data, which will enable you to make informed decisions and can see where you are tracking in your month. For the integration of these Microsoft systems, TISCI doesn't use code. We prefer to configure using Microsoft Flow, and this allows it to be very simple to use, very pleasurable to work with, and just offer a full, great end-to-end user experience. Now that we know where Business Central sits and where the whole Microsoft ecosystem can integrate with one another, I'm going to hand over to Richard to tell us a bit more where modern finance is situated.
Okay, thanks very much, Kim. So I'm not going to spend very long talking because I'm aware everyone's joined this to see some product demo, but I just wanted to touch firstly on what is modern finance, or what is TISCI's view of what is modern finance. We are one of our biggest campaigns in ERP over the last 2 or 3 years has been trying to evangelize the message that finance doesn't have to involve the laborious tasks that it always has done historically. I myself have worked as a finance controller and a finance director for many years, and I am very aware within that particular area of a company there are a huge amount of tasks that need to be done, very routine, and any kind of automation of those is a huge amount of time saving, allowing people to actually analyze and use the data rather than just processing. So modern finance is about automating those laborious tasks, whether that be using OCR, optical character recognition, for automatically bringing in purchase orders, purchase invoices, whether that be using workflow to move data from one part of your system to another, whether that be using things like the cash flow that we saw in our previous session around the prediction, the machine learning, the use of that data in predictive analytics to actually give you real-time and future information, which is only available through a huge amount of work that the system does in the background, looking at your data and making decisions based upon that. I think one of the other things that's vitally important now in the modern finance era is real-time information. Waiting for days and days and days to get information makes it sometimes just too late to make positive business decisions based upon that. So any availability of real-time information you can draw out of the system, information that you can draw out of the system from systems like Power BI, for example, which allows people outside of the finance application itself to have certain information available at their fingertips without having to wait till 3 weeks after the end of the month for that information to be available. This whole idea of automation and prediction of your data just gives so much more control to the CFO, to the financial controllers, and allows them to make proper grown-up decisions on the business without having to wait, as I say, 3, 4, 5 weeks for data which is by then so historical it's probably out of date. So if we can move on to the next slide, having said all of that, one of the features that we discussed in our last session around the cash flow was the predictive analytics, the machine learning, and the sort of clever technical stuff that the likes of Business Central can provide. What we wanted to do in this session was sort of take a step back from that and talk a little bit about sort of the core financial reporting of the system. Now, obviously, in the world we live in today, especially with the Microsoft Power BI, we can pull all sorts of interesting reports out of the system and pull data together from multiple systems into graphs and detailed information for the business. But what we wanted to focus on today is the actual core reporting capability inside the Business Central application. So this is not using the Power BI solution. This is using the core reporting capabilities actually sat inside the application. This is a vital component, and I've just written some key things here. The vital component to any business is the ability to report. We put a huge amount of effort and a huge amount of process into getting data into the systems. If we then can't get the data back out of the systems, there's kind of a bit of an irrelevance to that in a lot of ways. One of the key things here is that accuracy is paramount, and when you see the demo in a moment, you'll see how we can automate some of the processes around making sure that data is processed to the correct places to allow that information when it's reported to be accurate, and that the reality of that data is also key. We've touched on real time, and the two I really want to just touch on now, which Rachel will then go into more detail on, is to report what's important to your business. In my own role as a financial controller in the past, you would always have your profit and loss account, your balance sheet, maybe your cash flow statement pre-prepared, and at the end of each month those would be run. They'd always look the same. There'd be a consistency to that reporting. But there was always that moment when the FD or the CFO tapped you on the shoulder and just needed a report breaking out some information into a different structure or maybe filtered in a different way. And sometimes historically that has been quite a complicated thing to do. One of the things we'll show you today is the ability to do that within Business Central and to be able to pull that information out in a very, very user-friendly way, which the users can do. You're not going to need to phone for support. You're not going to need to have some technical capability or some development built. You can just report this data inside the application with full drillability straight back down into the core information. And the other thing which we're going to touch on today is how we break down that data. Within Business Central, there's a feature called dimensions. Those dimensions allow you to report your data at multiple filtered and multiple filtered capability, and you can filter that across multiple dimensions at the same time, which I know Rachel is also going to show you today. What this means is you can really start pulling the data apart and really getting to the nuts of what actually is really, really important to you. You know, being able to see sales less costs equals profit is great. Being able to break that right down and know that when you pull it all back together again, it's going to add right back to the start because it's all pulling off the same data. And as I said, full drillability straight back down to the core. So I'm going to hand over to Rachel and I'm going to allow her to actually show you some of this. So thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone. If you just bear with me 1 second, just while I get Business Central up. As Richard explained, I'm going to go through some of the financial reporting within Business Central that's here as standard for you. So the users can do this rather than needing myself or a developer. So whenever you open Business Central, the first screen you are always presented with is your role center. And within the role centre, like I talked last week, there's my lovely cash flow charts. We have some standard reports within here, so certain accounts I want to keep an eye on, just to give you that more knowledge that you want to have a look at my top 5 customers by sales value. But the main area, as Richard was saying, is the chart of accounts. So the chart of accounts is your income statement and balance sheet. It's where all of our transactions hit whenever we're doing any postings, and this is where you'll spend most of your time during month end doing some reconciliation. So from the chart of accounts, I do have the ability to filter by date, so I'm just adding on my total filter here, and I'm just going to filter on April. And what that will do is that now changes the figures within the chart of accounts to reflect April's figures for me. So I can easily do my month-end reconciliation from the chart of accounts. I can drill into the figures and see the entries that make up the balance within that month. The other thing I used to like to do when I was working in finance was I used this to do my reconciliation. So I'd run my age receivables report and then I'd balance it back to my balance sheet account to make sure they tie back. As Rich briefly talked about earlier, we do have dimensions within Business Central. So dimensions gives you that enhanced reporting from a finance point of view. So if I just go to my income statement, my income service accounts and my P&L account and get my dimensions up. So I'm just clicking through my dimensions. So what we have done here on this particular account is we have set a department dimension as mandatory. So what this means is whenever a user sells anything that's related to that particular nominal code, the system requests that they have to give you a department. This gives you that safety net. So when you're doing your reporting, you haven't got missed data. And the other thing you can do in Business Central is from a customer, vendor, item or resource, you can actually set them as default. So if a customer had an area of the Midlands, you can set them up as the Midlands. And then whenever that customer is put onto a transaction, it automatically populates Midlands. So the user doesn't have to think, all they care about is what customer and what am I selling or what am I buying. So the other good place that we also have for the chart of accounts is we have account subcategories and account codes. So I'm just going to go to my GL account categories. So based on my account category and subcategories, I really like it for the balance sheet side. I can easily see my cash, my receivables, my prepaid expenses and my inventory value without having to sum up the individual accounts because I have mapped them to their relevant categories. I find it really useful to see it in a combined state rather than the individual accounts because I get the whole picture. So from here, I'm now just going to go to analysis views. So as Richard was saying, the whole system we like to run on dimensions. My 2 main dimensions in my examples are going to be department and product. So the analysis views enables us to set up some filters already. So when I do my analysis dimension, which I'm going to go on to now, they're already predefined some of my filters. So my departments. And what I like about analysis by dimension, it's a very useful reporting tool as part of month end, is I have the flexibility to change what my lines and my columns look like. So obviously the most common one we tend to want to look at is the nominal code versus the period. But with dimensions, you get the flexibility, and on the analysis by dimension, I can do department versus my product. So now I've got a completely different reporting tool just by using that one analysis by dimension and changing my lines and my columns. So if I go to show matrix now, bear me 1 second, forgot to put my date filter on. Just going to pop my date filter on. So you can add whatever date filter. It can be month end, weekly, daily. You can do it as little as often as you want to run the matrix. So if I show my matrix again, what I have here now is my departments versus the products I have been selling. So you can see it straight in front of you. You can drill into the figures, and it just gives you that nice reporting tool. One of the other common areas we've had before is customer versus projects. So if you have a customer and you want to know what their project spend is, this is a great tool to use for that. So the next place, which is our main area of, I suppose we could say, our custom reports, is the account schedules themselves. So within Business Central, we have account schedules. This gives you the ability to make your own custom month-end reports based on the chart of accounts. So the first area when dealing with account schedules is setting up your column layout. So your column layout enables you to have one main layout of a report, and as Richard was saying earlier, but the flexibility to change how it looks. So if the FD taps you on the shoulder and says, oh, I need to see what actual versus budget is today, here's one I made earlier, I can create a column layout for that, so I don't have to keep creating a brand new report. I just change the column layout. So within the column layouts, we obviously have the column number and the header you'd like to call it. But the main ones I want to touch on is the formula. So we can have very simple formulas in here to work out my variances or the difference. But the one I like is the comparison date formula. This gives me the flexibility to compare year on year, or May 2020 versus May 2019. So I can see how my months are doing and my years are doing within the column layout. So the main area of the report itself is the account schedule. So whenever you want to edit an account schedule, it always asks you, do you want to make a copy in case you want to keep that one? I'm going to say no for now because I'm not going to edit it. This can be as simple or as complex as the business requires. It can be simply just the chart of accounts being pulled through, or just the income side of the chart of accounts. Or one of the more common ones is I have income services. This then is broken down per department. So I could add a line for each department and then tag it with that dimension. So instantly I can run a report to show me what my income is doing per department. And see the expenses as well per department. So you have the ability to do your own row numbering, the descriptions that you want, and then you just map it back to the relevant GL accounts. So I'm just going to very quickly run an overview of the income statement. So this is our lovely income statement that we currently have. So as I said, this report we have created, and because I have the column layout, I have the flexibility to change how I want the report to look. So now I have actual versus budget. So the report itself down here has changed. I haven't got to create 4 different reports because they're all the income statement, but I just need different information from it. And because of how I've done the column layouts, obviously it's feeding through my budget for that particular month. And you can also view it by month, day, week, quarter, year, however you want to report it. And as normal, you have your date filter. From there, we have the ability to add the other dimensions if I hadn't already, to look at it from actual versus budget per department. And the other area that I find very handy is with the account schedule, I have the ability to export to Excel. Not only can I export to Excel, I can create a brand new document, or the one I like a lot is the fact if I have my management pack, I have the ability to update an existing document. So to add another sheet to my management pack, and then I can have my yearly management report.